We are pleased to be here today at Georgia Public Broadcasting. We have been conducting this session for, I think this is our 6th or 7th year, the annual Media Symposium, and we've always been able to hold it here at Georgia Public Broadcasting. They've been great hosts for us. And to provide an official welcome from Georgia Public Broadcasting, I'd like to introduce Bob Olive. Bob is the Chief Operating Officer for Georgia Public Broadcasting Media, right? And has been in the broadcasting business for, I think, over 30 years and 13 years here at GPB. He was just standing out in the hallway talking to me about some of the exciting things that they're working on, projects they're working on. So Bob, if you'll welcome the group, please.
I'm not going to take up a lot of your time because you've got a jam-packed agenda that looks fascinating, a lot more interesting than I will ever be, I guarantee you. But on behalf of Taya Ryan, who is our President and Chief Executive Officer here at GPB, I want to welcome you to our facility. We're proud of it, we love it. We've been here about 15, 16 years now and love to open the doors and invite groups in and be as helpful as we can. And as many of you know, or most of you may know, education is in our DNA at public broadcasting anyway. It's very much a part of everything we do, whether it's the kind of programming we air on radio or on television, or whether it's what we do directly with the schools and the school systems across the state of Georgia on an ongoing basis. I was mentioning to Diane that we're very proud of and very close to putting the finishing touches on a digital textbook for Georgia schools for Georgia history. We found out a couple of years ago that they are no longer published because apparently of the expense and the minimum number that are needed each year depending on when they wear out and so forth. And so we said, we'll stand up, we'll see what we can't do from a digital standpoint. So we've created a Georgia digital history textbook. We're about to roll it out, to be working with the Cobb County schools and some others as well to work out any kinks and so forth. But again, very much a part of our DNA education. So welcome today. I hope you find it fascinating. I'm sure you will with all the great work that GPEE has done. And enjoy yourselves here at Georgia Public Broadcasting.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. For those of you who may be new to the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education, we are a nonprofit organization that's been in existence for a little over 20 years now, and we work closely with business, education, government, community leaders in really trying to put out the best research possible, identify best practices that are truly going to improve student achievement. So you've probably heard of some of the activities, initiatives that we're involved in. We've done the bus trip across Georgia, the Economics of Education publication, and of course the top 10 issues to watch, which is the premier publication for the Georgia Partnership. I know our policymakers are really always eager to see that new publication, so you're going to be the first to see it today. So again, we welcome you here. I'm going to do some quick housekeeping announcements. The restrooms are right across the hallway. You'll see the door saying restrooms, and if you'll go through that doorway, you'll find where they are. We've got refreshments in the back. Have coffee, water, soft drinks, and some munchies. If you get hungry, just get up, move back there, get whatever you need. And we'll take a break around lunchtime for lunch as well. So we'll have lunch available for you at that time. We're not going to read the bios of our speakers today for the sake of saving time for you, but we have a great group of presenters today, some of our leaders across the state in a number of education areas. So I hope you'll take the time to read through their biographical sketches. And very quickly, I want to go through the materials in the packet so that you're familiar with them. The agenda first, we're going to stay pretty much on a pretty tight time schedule to make sure that you have an opportunity to get the best information from all our speakers and have an opportunity to ask questions as well. And speaking of questions, feel free to raise your hand, ask speakers questions throughout their presentation, but we've tried to carve out enough time toward the end so that you can ask any questions at that time as well. And then you'll see our first presentation is going to be related to the top 10 issues to watch. You'll have a copy of those slides in your packet. We will have the slides posted for all the presentations on our website later after this presentation. The biographical sketches are included, and then you'll find a press release that Bill Maddox is going to talk to you about shortly. And then the blue sheet is the evaluation form, and please take the time to complete that. We really work toward continuous improvement with everything that we do with partnerships, so we need your comments and your input about how we can make this a better initiative, better session for you. And then the last sheet, how to connect with us, a lot of different ways, Twitter, Facebook, our website, but you've got all the addresses noted there. I'm going to introduce at this time Bill Maddox. I think you've all either had an email from him or talked to him directly. Bill is our communications director for the Georgia Partnership, and he's got a few comments to make to you as well.
Thank you, Diane. I always feel like a broken record because those of you who have been here before have heard my spiel when I start this, so I'll do it kind of quickly, but it bears repeating again. So number one, I thank you for being here. This is for you. When we started it 8 years ago, we didn't know where it would go, but it's become increasingly more popular through the years. And especially thank you, because I always send out a note to many of you before we start this, asking what topics you want to cover, what people you want to hear from, and we do our best. We can't do every one of them, of course, but we do our best to put the agenda together based upon what you have requested. So, number one, thank you for being here. Number two, thank you for responding to my several emails that you tend to get from me. A couple people I just quickly like to introduce, some communications folks from some other agencies in the back in case you want to talk with them during the day. John McGosh is back here. He'll be with us for until about 11 o'clock or so. John is from the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. So if you need to make contact with them, John is back there. And rather new member to the Georgia Leadership Institute of School Improvement, Robert Gaines is in the back as their communications person. So if you have any questions about GLSSI, grab Robert during the day. And there'll be some other communications type folks joining us during the day, and I'll point them out. We're always proud of the top 10, of course, because it's a great resource item for you, for education stakeholders across the board. So when we start this thing, we do our best to get that out to as many people as possible. We ask your help in doing that. If you feel in your review that it's certainly worthy of that, it's a wonderful resource item. As Diane has pointed out, there is a press release in your packet, a sample press release. When you get back to your home base, if you can put a note that this is now available, it's available on our website. We provide up to 2 copies for free upon request. Additional copies, we ask for postage reimbursement on that. So if you can, we'd be very happy if you can help us get the word out that this is available. As far as our speakers go today, everything is considered on the record. In case there's something that they ask to go off the record and you agree to, but otherwise it is on the record. There'll be time for you to ask questions of all the speakers. If for some reason you have additional questions, then we ask you just move out into the hallway when their time is over and you can continue the conversation out there. As Diane said, we are videotaping the session, so if there's something you need to go back and check on later, we're hoping to get that available on the website Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest of next week. So I'll send a note out when it is available and let you know where you can find it. Diane mentioned our social media outlets. We encourage you to follow us during the year in a lot of different subjects and a lot of different ways to do that. So this is in your packet. We'd love for you to follow us and stay close to us. Dana is up first. You have her bio. I'm not going to go into a lot there, but I will say this. A lot of you know Dana already. You've talked to her on various issues. She is always, as long as she's in the office, available to you, as is the president of the partnership, Dr. Steve Dolinger, and you hear from Steve later. So, I'm very happy, proud to have two of the greatest education resources across the state. Look at them as a source and a resource. If you just want to chat about a certain issue, which Dana did with somebody yesterday, please just give us a call. They love just walking through education issues. So anytime you need us, call on us during the year. So with that, I'm going to bring Dana Rickman up here, Dr. Dana Rickman, who's been with us now a couple of years and is just a wonderful resource and source. And she is the writer, researcher, sweat, blood, and tears in the top 10 issues report. So with that, Dana Rickman.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Bill, for that very kind introduction. And good morning to all of you, and thank you for coming to our Media Symposium this morning. I am really excited to be here to bring to you the 10th edition of the Top 10 Issues to Watch in Education. As many of you know, it's a signature product of the partnership. And as I just said, this is our 10th edition. We've been publishing it annually since about 2005. For those of you who are new to our Media Symposium, I just want to take a few minutes to give you a little bit of background about the top 10 and where it comes from. Our critical list of issues is designed really to provide a research-based, nonpartisan analysis of issues that we think are going to be affecting our schools and our children over the next coming year. Where we get the issues from is really throughout the year. We've started already thinking about next year's, looking at research that's coming out both on the state level and the national level about what's going on in the schools. We follow closely what happens in the legislature. Were there bills that were particularly contentious or particularly monumentous that either happened last year or we know that are going to come up this year? What are some of the programs and policies that are being implemented by our various state agencies? That's where we get a lot of our ideas from. Also, every now and then we like to highlight an issue that we feel really is impacting our school systems, but maybe isn't getting a lot of attention. And so we like to raise that up and give it a little more visibility as well. This year, I'd like to thank our longtime friends and partners, AT&T, for providing support for us to publish the publication this year. And so without further ado, when I was designing this slide, I was very excited. So it's like, oh, we can do a reveal. And it'd be ahs from the audience. And then I realized that you've actually been sitting with the document for at least half an hour now. So if you want to just for me, that'd be all right. Our first issue that we look at in the book, college and career ready standards, a must. Thank you for that, by the way. This really looked at the implementation of the higher, more rigorous standards that we have in Georgia, especially in math and English language arts, known as, in Georgia, as the Common Core Georgia Performance Standards. It looks at why we need them, what they are, and what they're not. Issue 2, the next generations of assessments, a roadmap. With these increased standards and more rigorous expectations, we need assessments that go along with them. As many of you know, this past summer, Georgia withdrew from a multi-state consortium that were designing new assessments known as PARC, and we are working on new assessments now, and so this issue really looks at what's happening in that process. Teacher preparation programs, a new beginning. There's been a task force that was led by the Georgia Professional Standards Commission in conjunction with the University System of Georgia and the Department of Education. And they're really looking at changes of how we train and certify our teachers and our leaders in our schools. Most of these changes include a new multi-tiered licensure system, changes in professional learning, and also program accountability. And I'd like to give a shout out, actually, Maureen Downey had a great article this past Wednesday in the AJC, really looking at a lot of these changes. Accountability, measuring teacher and leader effectiveness. There's a new accountability assessment system for teachers and leaders that is already in place in many districts across Georgia, and it's due to be statewide implemented by 2014-2015. This new assessment system really will allow very specific differentiation between high-performing teachers and teachers that are struggling. It will have impact in areas of professional development, licensure, and a lot of times employment decisions as well. Issue 5 is school climate. It matters a lot. This is one of those issues that I feel is not getting enough attention that I wanted to raise up, and we're going to talk more in depth about this particular issue in a few moments. Issue 6, early learning, closing the achievement gap. Early learning is always one of my favorite issues. I have a special place in my heart for it. Later this afternoon, we'll have Commissioner Bobby Cagle from the Department of Early Care and Learning come and give you a briefing on exactly what's going on in our early learning community. And I think he's got some really exciting news to share. Work-ready students, the goal. Many employers in Georgia now are saying that some of the students that are, especially the ones coming out of high school, are really lacking a lot of the technical skills and a lot of soft skills that go along with employment. And so this issue really looks at the implementation of career pathways by the Department of Education, but also really innovative partnerships between the DOE and both local and international companies so that kids, while still in high school, can gain some of these experiences that they need. Barriers to higher education completion, clearing those hurdles. We've all heard by now the statistics that we need 250,000 new college graduates by 2020. What are the barriers and what are the things that we can do to really get that number and reach that goal? In a few minutes, you'll hear from Josephine Reed-Taylor from the Technical College System of Georgia to really address some of these. Issue 9, governance strategies, key to success. I think we're seeing a movement and have been in Georgia for a couple of years now of really the decision-making responsibility about how to administer schools and govern schools, really moving closer and closer to the local level. You see parents wanting to be more involved. We saw that first with the creation of charter schools. Now we have entire charter districts and proposals for charter clusters, and really seeing how that's what's pushing this and how that's playing out in the state. The final issue is called puzzle pieces, putting it all together. This isn't so much a 10th issue, but how all the previous 9 issues really fit together in one complete puzzle. And that's a second issue that I'll discuss in more detail as we go along. But before we get into a really deep discussion of 2 of these issues, I wanted to draw your attention. You know, I'm a researcher and a data geek, and so I can't not talk about data for a few minutes. And so instead of putting 10 different graphs up here for you guys to look at, I've created a 13th table, or an 11th, excuse me, math is not mine, to really look at where we've been and where we're going. If you reference in your book pages 2 and 3, you'll see indicators for success. And it really looks at, from the birth to work pipeline, how is Georgia doing? How are we trending over the years around key indicators around educational outcomes? And how do we compare to national averages? This chart is just a summary. You see the ones highlighted in yellow mean that over the past couple of years we might have gone up, might have gone down, but it's a relatively steady state, and we're not making much progress, positive or negative. The ones that are highlighted in light green, 8th grade math and adults with bachelor's degree, we've recently seen a slight uptick in a positive direction, but I think we need a couple more years of data to really make it dark green and know that we're on that pathway towards success. The dark green ones are the ones where we really have a good positive slope, and it's places that Georgia is really on the right path. One that I want to particularly highlight is students earning AP credit. I know many of you know that the Ed Week Quality Counts report card came out yesterday, and Georgia was ranked 9th in the nation for number of students getting at least a 3 or higher on their AP exams. That's really exciting, and that's something that we should, as a state, really be proud of. On the other end of that spectrum, I wanted to highlight the children in poverty. You see a big red X. This is a challenge for our state. Over the past 6 years, we've seen a 7% increase in the number of children living in poverty. There are some districts that have more than 50% of their population under 18 living in poverty. This is a huge burden to our educational system and really threatens to undermine a lot of what our education reforms being put in place are trying to accomplish. So that's the statistics we really need to keep our eye on and really need to consider as we move forward. Now I want to talk in depth about 2 of the issues that are on our top 10. And as we're finishing with Q&A, if you have questions about the other issues as well, I'd be happy to talk about them. But the one that I wanted to raise up is school climate. It matters a lot. School climate is now recognized as one of the leading indicators of educational achievement. Policies addressing school climate can range from discipline, juvenile justice, bullying preventions, all the things that make kids feel safe, secure, want to be in school, and actively engaged in the schooling experience. You see here on this slide some definitions of school climate and what it encompasses. What we found through research is that there is a big impact of school climate. Georgia Department of Education, in conjunction with Georgia State University's Center for School Safety, studied school climate in Georgia. And what they found is school climate is primarily determined by the interactions between the students and the adults in the building, primarily their teachers and other leaders in the building. And what was more interesting about that is they found that other factors like neighborhood, demographic makeup of the school was much less a factor in predicting school climate over the interactions of the adults in the building and the kids. This is good news because that means we can actually do something about school climate. Just because a kid lives in a high poverty inner city school doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go to a school with bad school climate. We can change this. We can do something about it. Positive school climate showed positive gains across all academic subjects, and it was primarily strong in math and primarily strong among boys. And so if you can change that school climate, make it better, you're going to see some increased academic outcomes. Also important that they found, you'll see these results up on the slide, a 1% increase in school climate as measured by the study corresponded to more than 1% decrease in discipline actions and more than 1.5% increase in attendance. This is important, this connection to attendance. I want you to look at this table here about the impact of attendance and graduation rate. On this side, it's the number of days absent while the student was in the 9th grade. This is what we call a leading indicator, kind of predictors of success coming down the line. So for these 9th graders, if they were less than absent, if they were in school less than 5 days, they were more than 80% of them graduated 4 years later and on time. That's higher than our average graduation rate. However, if they were absent more than 10 days, that dropped to 61%, which is about 10 percentage points less than our graduation average currently. And if they were absent more than 15 days, there was a very little chance that they were going to graduate on time. This connection between attendance, school climate, and graduation is really important. Also, the state of Georgia has decided that school climate is so important that they've put it on the new CCRPI report card. The CCRPI is the new College and Career Ready Performance Index. It's replaced the old AYP of failing and achieving schools. The CCRPI itself, as many of you know, is a numeric score of 0 to 100. The School Climate Index is not factored into that numeric score. However, on the report card as it's shown, and you'll see an example on this, I think it's on page 21 of your book, that there'll be 2 additional star ratings, one for financial efficiency and one for school climate. And so each school now will start receiving a 1 to 5 star rating on their school climate. And that's going to be a compilation of student surveys, safety and substance-free learning data, that's going to be included, also discipline data and attendance data. And that attendance data is not just for students, but it's also for all the staff in the building. So if you have a school where a large percentage of the teachers and staff have a very high absentee rate, that's very hard to promote a positive, engaged school climate. Georgia is not only learning how to measure and report on school climate, they are also creating programs to intervene and do something about it. PBIS stands for the Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. And in your book is a huge detailed explanation of what PBIS is, but essentially it's a framework for schools to proactively address on a school-wide basis things like climate, safety, and discipline. It's a framework that really promotes pro-social behaviors as a way, and reinforcing appropriate behaviors as a way to fight against inappropriate behaviors. The Georgia Department of Education has convened a statewide leadership team that has come up with a strategic plan to implement PBIS across the state. And it includes things like a supporting infrastructure, training, sustainable funding, things of that nature. Since 2008, over 350 Georgia schools have implemented PBIS within their walls. And you can see an example of some outcomes here. These outcomes are from Lee County, Georgia, where they administered PBIS district-wide. And these are their outcomes where you can see significant reductions in behavioral, school suspensions, report to the office, things of that nature. While this is just a sample of results, this is actually pretty typical of what other schools and districts are finding that implement this PBIS system. Now, for the rest of the day, we're going to spend talking about different reform efforts that Georgia is implementing to improve student outcomes and student achievement. School climate really is the foundation to all of these reforms. If you have a school where kids want to be, where the teachers are engaged, you're much more likely to be successful. If the kids aren't there, if they're checked out, if they're worried about safety, no matter what else you do to improve student outcomes, it's going to be really hard to implement those with success. All right, so what are we trying to do to improve student achievement? This is my puzzle. This is the 10th issue that you find in your book. And talking to many educators across the state and talking about all the different things that Georgia is implementing from early learning all the way through college, many of them feel like they say, you know what, Dana, I feel like I'm drinking from a water hose. I can't count how many new acronyms and programs and measures and outcomes that we have to deal with. And I think from an individual level, understandably so, it feels like just these random acts, just one more thing put on teachers, one more thing put on districts. But if you step back and look at the big picture, there really is a coordinated strategy where all of these pieces fit together and support each other. Because Georgia's really on a mission. They want to improve student achievement. And so as you pull these pieces together, the sum of its parts really elevates that. And so I want to take a minute just to sort of look at each of these. And my boss Steve Dollinger said, it would really be cool if you could highlight each piece and show it coming together as a puzzle. And I'm sure there's a way to do that. I don't have those technical skills. So use your imagination here. And so when we talk about all of the reforms that are going on in Georgia, let's just start with the basics. What are we teaching? What do we teach? Well, we have new standards. They're more rigorous, especially in English language arts and math. So we have changes in standards. That has led, in some cases, at the district level to changes in curriculum, but not just related to the new standards. You see a lot of districts infusing more STEM curriculum, a lot of districts using more online learning, blended learning, career pathways. All of the curriculum is evolving to be more rigorous, more engaging, more relevant. So you have these changes, all of which are supported. The LDS is the new longitudinal data system, which if you have questions, we could talk about that. But the longitudinal data system provides resources for curriculum and standards to support what we teach. So that's what we teach. How well are we teaching the material, the delivery of instruction? We need to know how well we're delivering it. And so one way to measure that is by the TEKS, which is the Teacher Keys Evaluation System, which I believe is issue 3, maybe 4, issue 4, the new evaluation system for teachers. And it really not only reports on how well teachers are teaching, but it can be used as a feedback loop for professional development, and teachers can look at places where they're weak and where they're strong and really target their own learning. Also, to create stronger teachers, as we've mentioned, we have reforms in the teacher preparation program. So our new teachers and our certified teachers are ready for this new rigor. And again, this is all supported by the longitudinal data system that tracks all of these outcomes and helps teachers really focus in on where they're strong and where they need improvement. So that's how we're teaching. Our next questions, are students actually learning the material that we're teaching? Are they absorbing it? Well, one way to know that is the new assessment system, to really differentiate not just are they randomly guessing correct on the bubble test scores, but are these new assessments really getting at, do they understand the more higher order thinking skills and more rigor, can they explain their work? Also included are more formative assessments, which allows teachers to adjust their instruction as they go to make sure that everybody understands and is moving forward. And again, this is all supported by the longitudinal data system that tracks all of this and provides feedbacks and support. So students are learning, teachers are teaching. We know what we need to teach. Who makes sure all of this happens as it should? Well, the school leaders, school and district leaders. So are they doing a good job? Well, the school leader is subject to the LEAKS. As I said, there's a lot of new acronyms going around, which is the Leader Keys Assessment System, which is the new assessment system for basically school principals and leaders in the school. And it provides feedback to them about how well they're doing and where they can focus on improvements and where they're doing really well. To support them, we have more demanding leader preparation programs and also the longitudinal data system to, again, that continuous feedback loop to provide them information, to provide them support. So if all of this is working, how do we report out to students, parents, teachers, communities, businesses about how we're doing? Well, that's the CCRPI, the College and Career Ready Performance Index, which is a compilation of many indicators to let us know how we're doing. But it itself also provides detailed information back to the leaders, back to the teachers, back to the assessors and the students about where they're strong, where they're weak, and how they can target professional development for improvement. That's the puzzle, that's the picture that, the sum of its parts can be very powerful. But what I want you to keep in mind as we move forward are a couple of caveats to this story. First, imagine being in a school and being responsible for implementing this puzzle and understanding how the pieces all fit together. However, think about your school climate that we just talked about. How much easier that would be to manage if you had a positive, engaging school climate versus a school where children were afraid to show up and the teachers were frequently absent. Also, think about, last year our 10th issue is the changing demographics in Georgia. Our population is changing, our school-age population is changing. We have an increase in minority students, but most concerning to me is a significant increase, as we've already talked about, of students living in poverty. 60% of our K-12 population is eligible for free or reduced lunch, and at least 70 districts saw a 15% increase in low-income students. This is an additional burden on schools. So with this increase, you would expect to see an increase, a commensurate increase in additional resources to help with the increased rigor, increased assessments, so things like curriculum specialists, literacy coaches, in some cases, social workers and psychologists. However, the other piece of this story that you'll hear about in a few minutes from the Georgia Budget Policy Institute, all of this is happening at a time of diminishing resources, financial resources. We've seen the state and districts are really tapped out in what they've been able to spend on education, and so most of these support services have been all but eliminated within the schools. Which brings up the third caveat I want to point out. As this puzzle is being implemented, we have the question of leadership becomes incredibly important. And that's, we've addressed this a little bit in our issue 9 about the governance structure, but leaders at all levels, school boards, superintendents, principals in the schools, they have to be able to understand this puzzle. They have to be able to understand how it weaves together and how to support this puzzle amongst increasing needs of students and decreasing resources. For these things to be successful and to get the outcomes that we're really looking for from our educational system. That's my spiel. I'm happy to take questions on either of these issues or any of the issues in the top 10 or the data. Yes? Oh yeah, go ahead, sorry.
What I wanted to ask you about is the school discipline part.
Yeah.
I attended a Hechinger Institute 3-day seminar in Atlanta in November about school discipline, and all the Gannett folks came to talk about how often their kids are out of school suspension. And I understand the need to address school climate, but it would seem to me at the same time we're growing our class sizes to 30 plus in high school, teachers have less ability to deal with student problems, kids who are problems. And I'm wondering about your take on out-of-school suspensions. What was interesting at the November program is that they brought in the director of one of these highly admired charter schools in New Orleans, and he is a big fan of out-of-school suspension because he said, you've got to get these kids out. Otherwise, we can't teach the other kids. It really is a case of one kid versus 30 kids. And to me, the number one issue teachers seem to at least report to me is lack of support on getting kids out of the classroom, and pressure now because of the fact that graduation rates, attendance rates all factor into the school profile. So to me, all these forces are coming together at just the worst time in terms of dealing with that. So I'm curious about how you think school climate, what that really means day to day for teachers in Georgia.
You know, that's an excellent question. I don't know if everybody could hear really the question was about school climate, and especially with the increasing class sizes that we have. And you know, frequently teachers have more than 30 kids, and you get one or two really difficult to handle children, that they just don't have the time, and that maybe after school suspension is the way to go to get them out of the classroom so that they can focus on the other 28, 29 students in the class. And you know, and that's a difficult question because the schools need more support, and that's sort of the end of my talk there, is that we are expecting more and more from our teachers, more and more from our students, and to do it with fewer and fewer resources, frankly. And I think that's one reason why I'm so excited about the PBIS push that we're having, is that they are looking for funding, they are looking for support, and they're really looking to build an infrastructure across the state that can support this. I like PBIS because of the way it's implemented, and there's more detail in your book, but it is a school-wide approach where they have things that really touch all children, but there's tiers 1 through 4, and tier 1 is for school-wide, where you have programs that will touch all kids, things like character building, anti-bullying, things of that nature, and that really helps probably 80% of the kids in the school. And it really, again, discourages antisocial behavior and all of that sort of thing. But then you're going to have 20% of the kids that don't respond to that. And so then you move to tier 2, which is much more targeted intervention for the kids that need a little more support, a little more help. And a lot of times we're talking about mental health disorders and things of that nature, to get supports to support them. And then I'll get another 5% of the kids. And then you go to tier 3, where you're actually talking about interventions with student support teams and assignments to special ed. And so it's a really cost-effective yet targeted way to get the broadest number of kids and then focus down on different interventions for different kids as problems arise. And so I think moving forward, we have to be really creative and think outside the box of how we can address these school climate issues, so that we're not just saying, just get them out of the school, because in the long term, that's not going to really solve, it's not going to help everybody. It will be a short-term solution, but then what do you do with all the kids that you've pulled out? You send them to alternative schools where they may or may not graduate, and so I really think this holistic approach, but again, we need resources to do that. Next question.
I know you said there was a significant increase in students earning AP credits. Could
Yeah.
that mean a change in like AP course standards or curriculum?
The question was that there's been a significant increase in the number of students meeting AP standards, and was there a change in curriculum or standards? And from what I understand, there has not been. I know that the state, especially over the past couple of years, has really put a lot of effort and support into supporting the AP teachers and a lot of professional development and things of that nature. So it actually has been a targeted effort on behalf of Georgia DOE to really get those standards up and to get as many kids as possible learning the new standards, but they haven't lowered the bar or anything like that. Yeah.
My district, Richmond County, was part of the pilot program for the TPS system, and
Yeah.
I've heard different feedback from different teachers about what they think of it. And I was just curious about your opinion of what you think of the evaluation system, how fair it is, and how effective.
I'm thinking back to Bill's comment that everything is on the record. I'm actually very excited about the new evaluation system, but I think that there are a lot of challenges that it still faces to be implemented. The old evaluation system that we had, and this isn't just for Georgia, I think statewide, teacher evaluation system and leader evaluation systems as well have not been the best, really. I mean, they would identify, more than 95% of all teachers as as excellent, and we knew that that just wasn't right. And so what I do like about this evaluation system is that it seems to be doing a pretty good job at much more what we think of a normal curve, where the average teacher is probably somewhere in the middle, and you have a certain percentage that are really, really great, and then a certain, probably equal percentage that aren't doing well at all. And so it seems to do a pretty good job at really differentiating between excellent teachers, good teachers, and teachers that need more support. Some of the challenges that are associated with the new evaluation system, and I actually have talked to teachers and looked at their responses, and they actually like it in terms of the information that they're getting back about their own style of teaching and where they want to focus to get better and where they're good and can share their own best practices. From what I understand, it is a little bit onerous to administer. It takes a lot of time, and so that's something that we have to work through. Also, one of the biggest challenges, I think, for administering it statewide are what they call, unfortunately, the SLOs, which are student learning objectives. 50% of the outcomes in the teacher evaluation system is based on student growth. And that means how much did they learn from day one to the end of the class. And so about 30% of our teachers are in what we call tested subjects, which would be our CRCTs, our end of course tests, things of that nature. But that leaves a whole 70% of our teachers that don't have a standardized test. And so across the state, each of the districts are developing their own SLOs, student learning objectives. And they're developing them for every class where there's not already a standardized test. And that is a huge challenge. Now, I talk in detail about it in the book that the Georgia Department of Education has put in a lot of supports and provided guidance and things to really help sample test items and, what's rigorous enough and, things of that nature. But it's a huge uphill battle for the districts to get all this done, especially by 2014, where at this point, we may be talking about employment decisions based on this. And so why I think it's a good system, I think there are some stuff that we really need to pay attention to as we implement it. Other questions? Yes?
Hey, I'm Mike Klein with the Public Policy Foundation. I've got really a two-part question. One concerns LDS. It's got a lot of great resources in it. One of the things that we hear is that teachers don't seem to know it's there. They're just not aware of the fact that it's there and can be used. And the other thing is, this doesn't really fit in any particular box you've got, but I'm real interested in your thoughts on digital learning, blended learning, the Governor's Digital Learning Task Force, and what that conversation ought to include from your point of view.
Those are two great questions. Thanks so much for asking. The first was about the LDS, the longitudinal data system, and that a lot of teachers really don't know about it yet. That's a problem, because it really does have a lot of great information. I think it's a great tool for teachers, and there's, the poor communications department at the Department of Education is 1.5 people, maybe, and so I think it's behooving upon ourselves and other advocates within to get the information out. I know that the local RESAs, the local education resource agencies, are trying to do some training, but we really need to do a better job of making sure all the teachers are not only aware of it, but how to use it, because it's a very powerful tool, and really how to use this data to improve their teaching. The second question was around the digital learning. And that was an issue that we talked about in last year's Top 10, but I'm really actually excited about the opportunity for digital learning and online courses and blended classrooms and things of that nature. That comes in sort of a curriculum change for a lot of teachers, and there's a learning curve there. But I think especially during these sort of tight budgetary times, and especially in rural districts where they may not have access to like an AP physics teacher and other more advanced type of teaching and learning, I think it's a great opportunity to really help sort of equalize access to a lot of these subjects that they wouldn't have otherwise. I've been given the hook time's up sign from the back of the room. I'm going to be around today till around noon, and then I actually have to go to another conference. So if you have other questions or would like to talk to me after this, please don't hesitate to come up. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, as you can tell, Dana is a tremendous resource for the Georgia Partnership, but a tremendous resource for all of you as well. I think she knows she's got more captured in her mind than anybody I know of. We're going to ask Josephine Reed Taylor, who is the Deputy Commissioner for the Technical College System of Georgia, to come forward next. Dana mentioned in her comments that I think it's issue 8 that talks about college completion and the barriers that we face. But she mentioned that the majority of our employees are going to require some sort of post-secondary education by the year 2020. That's not just in Georgia, that's across the nation. Post-secondary, of course, meaning it can be a 2-year college degree, a 4-year college degree, or a certification program. And Georgia has put together a coalition of agencies and organizations through Complete College Georgia that is very focused on making sure that our students do get that post-secondary degree and can help us meet those employer-employee goals. But Josephine, if you'll come forward and talk to us about some of the challenges we're facing.
Good morning. Well, one of the first things is just to talk a little bit about TCSG and the Technical College System of Georgia and who we are. And let's see if I can get this to move. No, good at this. Good. Of course, the primary role of the Technical College System of Georgia is workforce development. And we, of course, play a very pivotal role in the development of technical skilled citizens. During this last year, we served 151,000 students in our technical programs. We trained another 60,000 people, both new and incumbent workers in our Quick Start program. And of course, we serve students in our adult education program. Georgia is one of those states that has adult education as part of our 2-year colleges. We agree and have focused on, in the last, since 2010, the fact that a significant number of new workers will be needed with some post-secondary education by the year 2020. That post-secondary education may not necessarily be baccalaureate degrees, which is where the Technical College System of Georgia becomes so critical. We have read and have followed the studies that have been done, and of course, by 2020, it's estimated that over 60% of the jobs will require a certificate, diploma, associate's degree, or bachelor's degree. Currently in Georgia, only 42% of our young adults between the ages of 25 and 34 have such credentials, and Governor Deal has challenged the public post-secondary institutions, and the Georgia Independent Colleges have also joined us in this collaboration to create 250,000 more credentials beyond what we would normally do by the year 2020. And as a result of that challenge, all 60 of the public institutions have worked on plans to do just that. And each year we submit an annual update on how that's working from our colleges. They use the data and the metrics that we are being measured by, not only here locally, but nationally as well, that we've all agreed upon, to see just how things are going and make adjustments as necessary depending upon our particular institutions. And of course, I'm just ignoring this. What we've discovered in this process and in working with other colleges throughout the country is that there are 5 major barriers, or what we call game changers, that affect student success in terms of completion. Those are co-requisite remediation or learning support, focus on full-time is 15 credits rather than 12 credits, guided pathways to success, that is where students are getting specific direction on the kinds of things that they need to select and take, structured schedules that are predictable, in terms of making sure that the appropriate number of credits that students need are offered when they need them. And then, of course, a significant game changer is performance funding, which focuses on outcomes rather than enrollment. So this morning, we're going to talk about highlight a few of these game changers for you and what we're doing. This is one that you'll hear more about within the next year. The governor established a task force that this last year came up with the idea that Georgia will shift to performance funding, where, as I said, the focus will be on outcomes and not inputs necessarily like enrollment. There will be a number of items in this that colleges will have to work toward in order to get the resources to do what they need to do, and that's, again, progression, how successful we are with remediation, how successful we are with transfer, and of course, how successful we are in producing credentials. But again, as I said, this one is not to be implemented until 2015-16 school year, so you'll hear more details about that within the next year. The most significant piece of work that our colleges have been working on in the last year and a half has been this area of remediation, or what we call learning support. Learning support is, and remediation, of course, is really where students enter our colleges and universities not prepared to do college-level work. And it's primarily in the area of reading and math, English skills, that they're having challenges and difficulties. And in TCSG, as an example, anywhere between 45 and 60% of a given population of incoming students have needed remediation. Unfortunately, like colleges across the country, students often go into remedial classes, but they never successfully come out. And that's been one of the major challenges regarding completion. We have each in the university system and in the technical college system of Georgia spent, as I said, this last year and a half working on redesigning what it is that we do in terms of learning support. And in TCSG, we're focusing really on just-in-time remediation. That is, our 24 colleges are using modular approach to providing English and math skills for people who are underprepared, rather than assigning students to sit in a full semester's class, and it might be a full semester of 2 or 3 or 4 classes to get their remedial skills. We are looking at breaking apart what the specific skill deficits are for these students, and they may have a small need for something. Generally, the biggest bugaboo is math, but we're trying to look at what math do they specifically need for the program that they've selected, and is there a way that we can provide that to them in a shorter time frame? One of the things that we found to be very successful is co-enrollment, and that is allowing students to take both their learning supports courses and the regular technical program at the same time. So this may be that the student is working in a lab and then is also working on a technical program, or they may have a computerized technology module that allows them to focus on that one area that's giving them difficulty while also being enrolled in classes. And what we found is that students are being much more successful because they understand why they need what it is that they're getting in terms of math and English and how it applies to their learning experience. Although, as I said, this is fairly early in terms of what we've been doing, but the completion rates that we're seeing from students have just really been substantial. The completion rates in reading have increased, in English have increased, and in math have increased. And we're just, as I said before, very pleased by the preliminary data that is coming out of all 24 of our colleges. Of course, our hope is that the changes that are being implemented and that you heard Dana speak about as it relates to K-12 will obviously produce more students coming to us who don't need remediation, but until such time as that is not the case, we're looking at what it is that we do differently, and we think that this change in business and change in approach that we're doing with our teachers and with students and how they access learning support is going to make a difference in their completion. The other thing that we're doing in TCSG is restructuring our programs. We're looking at, we've established a task force in this last year and a half to look at our programs the right length for students, and if they're not, what do we need to do about that? Because what the goal of this is to look at reducing costs for students, saving time for students, and all of that will, of course, improve retention and graduation. One of the major pieces that the Complete College America colleges across the country have focused on is that time is the enemy of completion. Students come to our colleges and they have catalogs like this from which to select their coursework. And what we need to do is to look at our programs, make sure they are the appropriate length. Many of us have allowed credit creep to happen, and it happens because faculty are genuinely concerned about students getting all that they need to be able to be successful in their program area. Well, all that they need may be more than they need. And so one of the things we're doing is taking apart our programs and making sure that they are the appropriate length. And then what we will do is look at how to schedule those programs so that students can get them, as I mentioned earlier, in a predictable way. For example, in our instance, in the Technical College System of Georgia, we are looking at and have already started implementing what's called block scheduling, where students take the courses that they need in a morning time frame or afternoon time frame or evening time frame, and a cohort of students, like many of us who went to graduate school, we did our programs like that, and they were very successful. Well, this works for undergraduates as well, and to move them along through the process, whether it's a year certificate or a 2-year degree, and they're taking courses with others who are in the program with them, and it acts both as a strong retention tool because they know exactly when their classes will be offered, but they also have a cohort of others that they're working with as they work through the program. We found that the longer it takes for students to complete a credential, unfortunately, the more life gets in the way, and that's particularly for those students in our population, adult students who tend to have work and families and other kinds of things that they need to do that gets in the way if they don't get in and through the process. So we're very excited about what we're doing in restructuring the programs and think that will have a very positive effect on student completion. One of the other things that's happened over the years is that when many of us, and I say many of us because I'm 60-something, went to college, we were expected to take 15 credits, and If we did that in 4 years, we graduated. Over the years, because students have had different kinds of lives and student demographics have changed, we've kind of shifted down into where 12 credits has become considered full-time, or even in some instances, 9 or 10 credits, depending upon where the student has been enrolled. And we know that if you start out thinking that that's what full-time is, it's not. And the chances of your completing on a timely basis is not good. So there has been some research and follow-through by several states of focusing, trying to get the culture shift to focus on 15 credits is full-time. And if you take 15 credits a semester, or 30 credits over a year, including summer for those people who absolutely cannot get 12 in a semester, the chances of your completing on time are significantly improved. And so we are working with the University System of Georgia to develop a marketing program that helps students understand that 15 is really what you need in order to complete on time, and providing that kind of advice that would help them see that. So that's one of the other major initiatives that we're working on in a collaborative way. The other thing that we're doing, both our systems, is looking at what are the underserved populations or not served populations that we can reach out to include to get our additional 250,000 students. And one of those populations is that in Georgia we have roughly 1.2 million adults without a high school diploma or a GED credential. One of our challenges is how we get these citizens ready to compete in post-secondary and get them equipped with the workplace skills that they need in order to acquire employment. We have begun a program called Accelerating Opportunity, which allows students who are enrolled in GED preparation programs at a fairly high level to co-enroll in a technical certificate program, and they do them both at the same time. We had one of our colleges to start this program back in January of 2012 as a pilot, and the results were just absolutely phenomenal. The students completed their GED in less than 10 weeks. Many of them completed their certificate at the same time, and over 80% of those students continued on into the next credential that was connected with the program that was selected. And as a result of that, we received some foundation funding to expand the program to 8 of our colleges here in the state, and they're implementing the program right now and getting similar results. We're not the only ones. There are 4 other states that are working on a program like this across the country, and we're all looking at the same kind of data and outcomes. It's just amazing, and it's somewhat similar to what we talked about as it relates to learning support, is that the students get the connection to what they're learning in the adult education program and how it fits with their technical program. Because what's involved in that is dual instruction. The technical educator works with the adult educator on having students apply the things that they do in the programs in their adult education situation, which makes it more meaningful to them. They're less likely to drop out, and they end up, as I said, continuing and completing both the GED and the technical credential at the same time. So we're very, very pleased about that, and we're pleased that we're looking at some different ways of having a significant population not be left behind as we talk about expanding opportunities for 250,000 additional people. Another group that we're going to focus on in terms of our outreach, both us and the university system, is the military population. And while we serve them now, we think that we can do a better job, and there are a significant number of people who would like to get a college credential. And so we are filling a TCSG Military Affairs Coordinator position who will be in our central office, but both us and the University System of Georgia have a joint building that we're putting together down in the Warner Robins area, our Georgia Military Academy and Training Center. And we'll both be offering services and programs out of that center. Although all of our colleges will offer programs for veterans as well, we are looking to do things to expand opportunities to serve both current military veterans and their dependents, because we think that that will be another population that will help in terms of producing credentials. All of us are putting in, if we haven't done so already, systems to look at evaluating military credentials for college credit. And that's something that both our systems has been working on, and we're just really, as I said, very pleased about that. As I indicated at the beginning, TCSG's focus is on workforce development. So we, of course, charge ourselves for doing tracking of the people who come through our programs and are graduating. Are they getting jobs, and are they being placed? And if you look at the blue, the dark blue squares, it shows you those people who are employed in the field in which they are being trained. The golden block shows you people who are employed both in field or in any other field, or who have transferred and are continuing their education. So we feel that we're being very successful in that regard, and we are in fact achieving the goals that we anticipate. With these changes that we're putting in place, all of these game changers we're implementing, what we're hoping to do and what we're insisting that our faculty do is to keep quality at the core. We stand behind the education that we're providing to students. It is not our goal just to produce more credentials and more graduates. It is our goal to produce people who have the workforce skills that are needed for the state of Georgia. In fact, of course, we stand behind what we do with a guarantee to retrain students if they are not suited for the workforce. And that is at no charge to the student and no charge to the employer. So it's critical for us that the additional 50,000 students credentials that we have to produce by 2020 will be done with the same level of quality that we've done the other students. And that's a core piece of what it is that we do. And so, as I was saying, we don't anticipate implementing these game changers, solutions to these game changers by just meeting the governor's expectations that we have graduates without making sure that they are of the highest quality that they need to be to sustain the workforce in the state of Georgia. So, there, I said it. Okay, any questions? In the back.
Quality counts came out yesterday, the Education Week, the annual big review, and a very interesting subset of their review was that Georgia on adults, our adults have higher steady employment than other adults in the U.S. However, our adults earn less than adults and they have less education. I'm curious about what you think about what degrees, what certificates you folks are getting. Back when Georgia State was following this, looking at HOPE money going to technical schools, they faulted the kind of, what kind of jobs these folks were getting. A lot of low-level childcare, kind of home nursing stuff, not the big welders making $150,000 a year. So I'm curious about the Quality Counts findings, that we have more steady employment but lower adult earnings and lower adult education, and the earlier concerns that you weren't turning out folks who could in fact live on the jobs that they were trained for.
Right, and that's one of the areas that, in terms of emerging occupations and the kinds of things that we've been spending more resources on in the last several years, is to make a switch in that area to make sure that we're providing employment where people can get family-sustaining wages. We do know that we have the issue of childcare here in our state, which is in great demand, and we produce a lot of childcare workers, but the industry itself needs to make some changes. I think that's one of the reasons, and you'll probably hear from Mr. Cagle, is that the turnover is so great because the salary is so low in that particular area. But in other areas, if you will look at the kinds of occupations that our colleges are training for, their goal is to train for employment where people have family-sustaining wages. I think one of the things that's been really critical about the piece of accelerating opportunity is that that's a specific direction that look within your community for employment that those students, once completed, when they complete those programs, they can be able to support themselves and a family. So it's not just low-level and low-end work. However, we do have stackable certificates where people can start out, because so many of the adults who come to us need to work, and they need to work right away. So getting that first credential may put them in a position where they're employed in an area that's not paying a high level, but if they get the next certificate and the next certificate, then they will end up being promotable and in a position where they can move on. So that's piece of the discussion that all of our programs are having.
You mentioned 45-60% of folks that come to you need remediation. Of that percent, how many of those are high school graduates?
I can get that specifically for you, but
Most of them high school graduates?
most of them are high school graduates. And unfortunately, and that's what I was saying, we are very excited about the changes that are happening in K-12, because still a significant number of students who graduate from high school within the first 2 years who come to our colleges are needing remediation. And again, unfortunately, as I said before, a lot of that relates to math, and we're making some changes. K-12 is making some changes in that regard, and we expect and hope that with what happens with the Common Core, we'll see changes in that, but this is what's occurring.
So are you tracking that? I mean, are you seeing a systemic issue at the K-12? I mean, they're being passed out of high school and then going to you. So are you tracking that data to see, where these kids are coming from, if it's certain school systems or certain areas or certain curriculum? I mean, are you working together with K-12 to find out what the problem is? Because obviously they're coming out of high school with a degree and coming to you without the skills that support that degree.
Yeah, both the technical college system and the university system have that data, and we share that data with K-12, and I think that's been really wonderful, because it's been part of the support for getting into the Common Core and focusing on doing things differently in math instruction and English instruction at the high school level. And so we're collaborating with not only our system, university system, but also with K-12, and making sure that they understand the skills that are necessary for programs when students come to our colleges, and that they have that. I think one of the things that we have changed or worked on changing over the last 3 or 4 years here in Georgia in particular is that people have often said, well, they really don't need to go to a college, they just need to go to a technical school. And thinking that if students come to technical colleges, that their skills can be less than what they need to be if they go to other colleges. And unfortunately, that's not true. We invite any of you who want to examine the curriculum and the kinds of things that students have to study and need to study in order to be successful in their programs and see the skill level that's required there. And so we have worked hard in trying to get that message out, not only to secondary counselors, but to parents and others in the community, so that they understand that students need to come prepared to do college-level work. And we're, as I said, focusing on learning support and making sure that it's there and available for them. But of course, we'd like to get out of that business as well.
It sounds like there's a change in mindset that needs to happen, and you're saying that that may happen a little bit, but this college and career readiness that they're doing in the K-12, do you expect that to help you a little bit with that? I mean, that the focus is more on making sure that they know they need those math skills and English skills in order to make it in technical colleges.
Absolutely.
People think technical college, I don't need to.
Yeah.
I don't need to know my math.
No, absolutely. And as I said, our colleges have worked with and reviewed what's in the Common Core, and we believe that that will produce the kinds of students who will be able to do the kind of work that's necessary when they graduate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reed Taylor. We really appreciate it. I know as we travel around the state, the Georgia Partnership, we often talk to economic developers, and they really, really stress how valuable the technical college system is, that many of our students just are not interested in going for a 4-year degree, but they know that they do need some college education. So the technical college system is really doing a great service for us in preparing those students for the jobs that we have available now.